Hello, everyone. Welcome to chapter 271 on my RLDR Custom Creations YouTube channel. It is the weekly edition, and we're going to do another segment in the basics this week. So if you want to see what I did with my students on this tool here, all you need to do is stay tuned. Yes, and today we're going to talk about the jointer. Jointer is another one of those tools that can be extremely dangerous if you're not proficient in its use. Okay, the jointer basically replaces the hand plane. That's what this replaced. Now, it's really great if you can have your students use the hand plane a little bit. It's wonderful. But I found in a shop situation with the time we had and student interest that it was good to get onto the jointer as quickly as we could, as safely as we could. So those were, important considerations for me. So what I'm going to do with today's video, and I tried to do it a bit with the last one, is kind of divide this into segments so that you can show your students, or as a more experienced homeowner, you can decide what you want to watch and what you want to leave out. So we're going to start with a basic introduction to the jointer. So I already showed you which hand tool it replaced. Now the jointer is really quite a simple tool. It's a rotating cutter head. Mine does not have carbide teeth, but the newer ones do. Mine just has straight high-speed steel blades, and there they are. Now, I have a safety switch, so my jointer is plugged in, but it's not live, so I'm not doing any safety things incorrectly already. But just to show you, there's a belt that runs back here to the motor and to the cutter head, and then it's got two flat surfaces. Now, these two tables, one is the infeed table, which basically sets your depth of cut. Okay, if you want to take a 1/16 of an inch off or 2 or 3 millimeters, this, you set it with this. Now in the school shop, because of all the multitude of users, I always just defaulted this to a 1/16 of an inch, about 2 millimeters. That, and if you needed more than that, you just did another pass. So that's what I did, and there's the locking lever there. Okay, while I'm at the front part of the machine here, the on-off switch is here, and a lot of machines, and I really like this. In fact, I may even convert this machine to that yet. I like the switch up here. This bending over and reaching, it's not as good. This is a very much a 1980s, 1990s style of jointer. So that's the way they did it back then. Okay, so moving right along, this is the infeed table, like I said. The guard, please always use the guard. And if you're in a school situation, you are obligated to use the guard. Even if you're at home, use the guard. Okay? The outfeed table is a little different than the infeed table. It's also a machine flat surface, but I don't have a good hand wheel on this, and because you don't really want one. The school jointer was a general, and it had another hand wheel just like this, but students wanted to try to adjust it at times, and you never, ever adjust the outfeed table unless you're the instructor or it's your own jointer and you're setting it. Okay, what's important with the outfeed table is that when the highest arc of the jointer knife has to line up with this table. Okay, so let's look at it another way. If you've got this set to take off a 1/16 of an inch, in theory, the outfeed table should be a 1/16 of an inch higher than this table so that the board can just continue sliding on it. That's important. So as a student, do not adjust the outfeed table. Okay, please don't do that. And if you're an average homeowner, you'll figure out pretty quick that you don't need to adjust that. Okay, so I think that's, sorry, another couple things here. The fence, the jointer fence on this one adjusts across the face of the jointer. Now with high-speed steel knives, and if we were just doing edges, I'd often set this closer to the left side of the machine so that you'd only use those blades, and when they wore out or got a little duller, you'd move it back a little bit. Eventually you could wear the whole cutter head that way, which for high-speed steel knives is a good thing. Carbide cutters, I don't think it's as big as a concern. The other advantage of this is not having as much of the cutter head exposed, which can be a problem as well. So anyway, set that the way it should be, lock it. And another thing to check, and I don't think I have a square handy here. Oh yeah, I do. Is this needs to be good. This needs to be square. That is very important on a jointer. So I think that kind of takes care of the parts. And let's talk about the safety equipment that you might want to have on your machine. In fact, for the way I did things, I always felt it was important to have the safety equipment needed for the jointer at the jointer. Okay, so for one thing, and I'm not going to wear it today because it messes with my microphone, and it's not always mandatory in all school shops because I already have protective glasses on. These are actually safety glasses. A face shield, which is not a bad idea. It protects your whole face. I have one hanging on my jointer. All right, the other thing is push sticks. I had a comment in the last basics video that I needed to show everybody my push sticks. And I think that's worth it, because I really didn't think that was much of an issue, but I've come across some information on the internet suggesting that plastic push sticks may have some problems or whatever. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe some weekend edition, we'll shoot a push stick video. Okay, look forward to that. Okay, and I didn't get it the right way, obviously, because I do have magnets on these and they stick to the machine. The next thing that I think is important to have on a jointer is a rubber-faced push pad. And once when I do the demo for planing a face, you'll see how I use this. Can you make something like this? For sure you can. In fact, you could make it better than this. You could make a hook on the end. But whatever you do, make sure that you design. If you're designing your own pushing equipment, make sure you design it and then have a procedure to use it. Because just setting people free, students are going to come up with different ways of doing things that you never thought of. So if you want them to use it a certain way, make sure you have a procedure. That's important. Okay, so, well, I think that about covers the parts of the machine and the safety equipment that goes with it. There's just one thing left, and it may not be a big deal for a lot of you. You may have no choice in this. But when I set up a shop, the jointer is always against a wall. Okay, now some people that doesn't make a lot of sense, but to me it does, because when you're in a shop, you've got 20 kids in a shop, you don't want traffic around the end of the jointer. Sorry, my head goes off the video there, but that's important. You don't want traffic around that edge. Let's say, for example, somebody's jointing a longer board. You know, they're controlling it over the cutter head, and somebody walking across the back to the next machine, you know, runs into it. This kid's hands probably go over the cutter head, and you have a dangerous situation. And all that can be avoided by putting your jointer at a place where people don't get behind it. In my shop, it's junk. Yes, it is on an outside wall. but there's junk here too, so you can't get behind mine. But that is important. But you know what? You may not have the luxury of making that decision. If if you're moving into a shop that's already set up, whoever came into my shop in this town, this is the way it's set up because I had a hand in it. But you may not, and your shop that you're going to may already be set up. So make sure you come up with a protocol to protect the end of the jointer. That's important. All right. I think that's about all that I had to say. Uh, yeah, I think I'm just looking at my outline. Oh, okay, one more thing. I think I've mentioned this in another video before, but there is kind of a protocol for teaching tool usage. And my understanding of it is this. First of all, students need to do an assignment. Okay, and I had a very simple assignment that they did, and then they'd correct it. And then the next step was to write a safety test. I wanted them to have a test before they went out into the shop and tested the machine. Okay, so we did a safety test. And I had a key for that. And I had a system of marking that made it so that everybody got into the shop. Then, and that's what's coming next in this video, the demo. So I would come to the machine and I would demo, simple demo like the table saw, no fluff, no, just the basics. Yeah, there are all kinds of other things you can do with this machine, but we're just going to do the basics, okay? We're going to do a face and an edge when we start jointing. That's it, because that's all you're going to have time for. And then once you've demoed, then with your supervision, your direct supervision, your students can cut or joint, okay? And then after that, it's use with permission. So when they ask you if they can use the machine, and then you look at them and they've got their face shield on, they've got their push sticks in their hands, they're ready to go, their pieces on the bed here, then you can say yes, but you still need to watch, okay? Usually my experience has been accidents don't happen on the first couple usages. They happen later on when the students are more familiar with things. And it's just like adults. The more familiar you are, the more shortcuts you take. Now, fortunately, we never had any power equipment injuries, but actually we had one, and I'll tell you about it when we do that tool. But I think a proper protocol is really, really important. So if you can set that all up. Oh, and by the way, if you're looking for an assignment or a test, here comes the shameless plug. Go to teacherpayteacher.com and look up RLDR Custom Creations, and all my paperwork for this safety demo stuff is there, and it's very, very reasonably priced. So if you don't want to just use it outright and you want to make your own, or you found something on the internet you think is better, great for you. But if you want to use it, it's set up so it's basically download and print and photocopy. It's that easy. So, and the price is ridiculously cheap. So anyway, there, just a shameless plug. So when I come back, we're going to do some actual cutting. All right, well, I'm zoomed in on the jointer, so you can't see me, but you can hear me, and you can see you've got a good view of the jointer. So that's what's important. So before you turn on the machine, oh, and by the way, instructors, I would recommend for first cuts that you use shorter pieces of wood. By short, I mean 2 feet to 3 feet. 600 to 600 millimeters to a full meter. 3 feet isn't bad either. But yeah, keep those pieces in those lengths because you don't want anything much shorter. This is a little bit shorter, but this would still work. All right. So the first thing you want to do with your students is teach them to identify grain direction. Now, I have some measurements written on this board. I hope that isn't distracting. But you see those cathedrals there? This is a plain sawn board. So the board with cathedrals like that, see how they're pointing this way? Well, the grain is going to run out of the board this way. So this board I would cut, the cutter head is cutting this way. I would cut it like this. Okay? There's a plain saw, or pardon me, a quarter sawn, because the center of the board's right there. So this is quarter sawn, this is quarter sawn. Sometimes with quarter sawn boards, it's a little harder to tell which way the grain direction is going. And sometimes where there's a knot, it's going to change. So this one as well, those are the cathedrals there. It looks like it follows that same direction. So we can joint this board this way. Now, if you get that wrong, students, don't worry too much about it. If you're planing an edge to glue up a larger panel, even if you joint it the wrong way, the jointer has enough power and heft that it's not going to matter. Yeah, it's not as good a cut, but it's still gluable. But with a hand plane, if you go against the grain, you'll know right away. Okay, so I am not wearing my face shield, and you can't see that anyway if I was, so I should have just said, yeah, I'm wearing my face shield. But anyway, so, and this piece, I'm not going to use a push stick or a push pad with this, because the fence of this jointer is about 5 inches high. Most of them are at least 4. So my rule in the school shop was, if the piece was taller than the fence, you didn't need push sticks for it. Okay? So then what would happen is, we're going to be safe jointing this with our hands. However, there is one little condition with using your hands. One thing I never wanted to see in the school shop was a student doing this, fingers draped over the face of the board. When you run the jointer in my shop, you do it this way. You curl those fingers up and hook your thumb over the board. That allows you to push it into the fence to keep things square. And that way you don't forget about your fingers and get reminded that when they open the safe, or the guard. Sorry, couldn't think there for a minute. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn the machine on, and I'm going to use my hands to do this. Always start with the guard closed. That's where you start. Okay, so what I did is I asked permission from my instructor, and he or she looked at me and signed off. Now I'm going to start the machine and make the cut. All right, so that's important. I could probably do this again to get it properly smoothed out, but for this demo, I don't think we need to. One other thing that I should have pointed out maybe before I started, but I have students at times that would stand well away from the machine and reach over, and that's really, really dangerous. So you want to put your right thigh right against the infeed table when you're doing shorter boards like this. That way you have really good support and leverage, and you are in control. Okay, so that was jointing an edge with no push sticks. Okay, let's move to a smaller piece now and joint an edge with push sticks. Okay, so this one, again, the grain, there's a knot there, so the grain is a little harder to detect, but we're going to do it that way. And then I'm going to take my push sticks, because this one's lower than the fence, right? And your push sticks give you that distance away from the cutter head, which is so important. Now, I love push sticks, and I love wooden push sticks because anybody can make them. You don't have to order them from somebody and spend big dollars ordering stuff that you can make. But just using a piece of stick isn't good either. So yeah, I'm going to need to do a push stick video. But anyway, so you've got your push sticks in your hand. Your piece is sitting on the infeed table. Again, you got your instructor's permission, and you're going to cut. But what I do with push sticks here is I put this one like that, and the other one controls the end. This way you can push into the fence a little bit. You've got some leverage instead of doing this. This doesn't work as well. This works great. So do that. And notice I use my push stick to move it back, not my fingers, because I don't want my fingers in that cutter head. All right, let's do this. I got permission. The teacher says I'm good to go. You go. And always push your piece far enough so that the guard snaps back, okay? That was a cut using the push sticks. I like this technique here. It works, to me, it works really well. And then your other push stick controls the end. So that was doing an edge smaller than 5 inches on a piece smaller than 5 inches with your push sticks. Okay, so then we're going to move on to jointing a face. Now, that's kind of where we're just going to use this piece. That's kind of where some lumber preparation decisions need to be made. Now, this is only, well, okay, this is an 8-inch jointer, but I've got oak sitting there that's 10 inches wide. For me to joint that on here is a bit of a nightmare. Yes, it's possible, but it's not a basic thing. So we often, if we needed a clean face, we would often go straight to the thickness planer, especially if it was a piece that, one side, it wasn't all that important. Yes, when I did a guitar fingerboard and neck, that always came to the jointer, and that joint was always off the jointer. But sometimes for building little pine furniture, we would just go straight to the thickness planer. Okay, so I'm going to do a narrow piece. This piece is only about 3 inches, not quite. So I'm going to do this for a demo for the planing a face. So when you're planing a face, again, the same grain rules apply. You're looking for the way it runs out of the wood. And this one has a knot right here, so it's running both ways, actually. So making a decision as to which way it goes then is basically a toss-up. So that's what you need to do. Now, the difference when you're doing a face is the way you hold the material. So for doing a face, I get the push pad and one push stick, okay? And I controlled it like this. This way you have good, you're good and solid. You're close to the jointer, your hips on the infeed table, you can provide good down pressure with your push pad. It's got a rubber compound on it so it doesn't slip as easily, and you've got good end control with the push stick. Those are important considerations. And you want to be against the fence. Even if you don't have a jointed edge or anything, it's still against the fence. Okay, so now that you're set up to do that, let's actually do it. So, okay, again, you got permission from your teacher, and you're going to press the button. Okay, and you got a face done. So I think that basically sums up using the jointer for a basic edge cut or edge planing and face planing. All right, we're going to go and close this video off now. Well, there you have it, a basic demonstration using the jointer. Now remember, I'm only sticking to basics here. There are other things that can be learned. We could have spent a whole 1-hour video on this machine easily. But that isn't what I wanted this to be for the school situation. This is basically finishing off one of the things I started when I was an industrial arts teacher in our local school here. I wanted to have the assignment and the tests done, and that is done, plus all the safety rules. I don't know if you noticed, I didn't point them out, but they are also included in that assignment and test package on teacherpayteacher.com. Just remember RLDR Custom Creations. And I think for a package like the jointer package would cost you $5 US. It's cheap. There's no way you're going to spend your time to develop what I developed for $5. So anyway, the push aside, yeah, the jointer is a wonderful tool to use. It makes life so much easier. There are some things that I didn't mention, like really small pieces. Any big power tool or any even school shop size power tool, do not cut little pieces. Unless you've got a special setup for it or a jig that works. Now, little pieces on the jointer is a recipe for disaster. Also on the table saw, on the bandsaw, on the sliding compound miter saw, anything with the word saw on it, stay away with small pieces, okay? So anyway, with that in mind, please like, share, and subscribe share these videos, subscribe. We are slowly moving up a little bit again. I've been whining a little bit more and that seems to help. So here we go again. But anyway, I think the weekly edition is going to always be for the next while. It's going to be a basics video. And eventually I'll put these all together in my channel and put them as a grouping. So we're not there yet, but eventually. So anyway, with that in mind, please, when you're in the shop, use your jointer safely. Now, for those of you that aren't in the school situation, that are just watching this to learn to use your tool safely, there's more you can do. But remember, there's differing ideas on what should happen. And I'm very confident with what I do because I did it for a long time with young students and it worked. So if it works for them, it's going to work for adults as well. So, but you can look at things if you decide you want to do things a bit differently, as long as your hands are well away from the cutter head and you're protecting your eyes and your lungs and your ears, have at it. So anyway, with that in mind, again, remember, please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you on the weekend edition.